Hello, Tom Lavecchia here with the latest edition of the New Theory podcast. Today, we have a very special guest who is an NBA analyst, former AP beat writer for the Brooklyn Nets, Anthony Puccio, as he launched a newsletter website dedicated solely to the NBA. So obviously, he can give us some local insight to now the Brooklyn Nets, as well as the NBA, but also more importantly, I want to hear a story about how he kind of got a content, not kind of, I do want to know why he why he launched a content, I guess, platform dedicated to the NBA, and interested in how he did it. Anthony, welcome to the New Theory podcast. How you doing today?
Tom, I'm great. Thanks so much again for having me on.
It's our pleasure. So Anthony, walk us through. So you're a New York guy. Give us, your background. Where'd you grow up, and kind of why'd you stumble upon being an NBA guy?
Yeah, Tom, I grew up in Queens, moved out to Long Island when I was young. Always played basketball at a very competitive level up until really college started. And, for me, growing up in high school on Long Island, playing in the boroughs, faced some hardships here and there and wanted to figure out what I want to do with my career. So, look, I had one passion in life, and that was basketball. And I was a pretty good writer in high school. I'll never forget one of my English teachers saying, you should try and be a writer. So I put the two and two together. I was about 16, 17 years old, and I just started emailing people, man. I was a senior in high school. I started emailing Frank Isola, Stefan Bondi, everyone that I possibly could, just to get some advice. I wasn't looking for anything crazy. Just wanted to know how to become a better writer. And eventually, a lot of advice that I had gotten was to just keep writing. So that's what I did. I built a portfolio. I was writing NBA features on Microsoft Word. And actually, when I was a freshman in college, I circled back to somebody that I reached out to, who was Tom Lorenzo of SB Nation. And he appreciated my persistence. And when I was 18 years old, I got my first season credential to the Brooklyn Nets. And from there, I started working for the Associated Press, covered the Brooklyn Nets and New York Knicks for about 7 years. And here I am working for the association.
So you were the association or you launched association, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So give me, because, in the writing world, right? And you know this better than anybody. And just to give some context and some backdrop, you were kind of pretty high on the totem pole to write, for AP to Associated Press, to kind of be a staff writer, if you will, for a major NBA team, especially since you're a basketball guy. So I can't imagine that kind of was a dream job. So, how did you, kind of peel yourself away from that to launch your own business?
Well, I would say it was a dream job, but I would also say this is a dream job too, Tom. I guess
True.
And respectfully, I say that. This is like my baby. I started the association, and again, Tom, I mentioned that I had started and got my first season credential when I was 18 years old, and I think I tried to be like a young philosopher and really pick apart everybody's minds, right? And grasp where the media landscape was and where it was headed. And with that being said, I feel like I kind of had one foot in with the newspaper industry and one foot in with the digital industry. I was freelancing for the New York Daily News and SNY, and on the side, I was writing for Nets Daily and the Associated Press. So it was like this weird, kind of polar opposites of the media landscape, and seeing that social shift and people becoming enamored with highlights on Twitter. They don't go to SportsCenter to watch the highlights anymore. They go on Twitter. So I saw that people aren't really looking to read 1,500 to 2,000 words on one story. So as time went on, I really focused on quick hitting stories, and that's where the newsletter comes in. It's so easy. You just put your email in. It's free. You get it every day at 3 p.m.
Doing it right now. Right now, I'm doing
and in less than, instead of reading one NBA story for 1,500 words, you get 6 or 7 of the hottest NBA stories of the day or original reporting, some breaking news that we had yesterday, whatever it might be, betting odds, just everything that you possibly need to know about the NBA is all compiled in less than 1,000 words, probably a 2-minute read for people. And that brings that NBA Twitter and digital life to what we call, the newsletter. And in addition to that, it's kind of just giving fans a voice. I do a Twitter live twice a week and basically sit there for an hour and answer fans' questions. So, I look at it as a newsletter, but I also look at it as a community for NBA fans to really just voice what they want to talk about and also what they want to read about.
So no, and I want to clarify. So no, I wasn't. Listen, I'm an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is the be all and end all to me, and that is my dream. And I'm theoretically living my dream, and I know you are as well. But I was just saying I wanted to give context because that's not a layup, pun intended, to walk away from where you walked away from to go to what you did. So that was kind of like an acknowledgement, if you will, to say, wow, that's a pretty big step. I'm going to give you what I like about it, guys. I'm on the site now. I have a digital marketing agency. I have a podcast. I own 2 newspapers, 2 publications. And I got to be honest with you, like websites in itself are dying because you have so many other platforms, right? The nice thing about the association, it's clean, simple. Hey, you sign up, you get a newsletter. So whether you want to read it in your inbox, whether you want to go on the site to find the latest newsletter. I have ADD, so I like the 800 words or less topic, length. Then the other thing, it looks like that it's like kind of meant for fans. It's not like, you sat there and gave like, you over analyze stuff about the stuff I'm reading right now and the stuff I prepare for the interview. So I love everything about it. So let's kind of get into the juice right now. James Harden had enough. Walk us through that and, give us what you think.
Back in November, I had reported that James Harden was interested in going to the Brooklyn Nets and that they were very close to a verbal agreement. And that was the case, that James Harden, he wanted to go to Brooklyn. He voiced his message very loud and clear to the front office that he wanted to go to Brooklyn. He wanted to play with his former teammate Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant wanted him in Brooklyn as well. Things kind of fell apart, and it was understood that they probably would revisit sometime later in the season. And here we are later in the season, and these James Harden rumors are very much real. And you're hearing the Brooklyn Nets and you're hearing the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, something that people have to understand is that Mike D'Antoni is the assistant coach, the lead assistant coach for the Brooklyn Nets, the former head coach of the Houston Rockets. And Daryl Morey is the president of basketball operations in Philadelphia, previously the general manager of the Houston Rockets. So James Harden wants to, 1, win a championship, 2, have a reunion with 2 men that he respects very much. So, there's this thing where James Harden didn't have much leverage when he wanted that trade to Brooklyn because he has 2 years left on his contract. His mother represents him as his agent. So there's nobody really pushing the trade hard on them. So this is, taking some time, and the toxicity in Harden's play and his actions, his body language. Last night, he goes on an interview and says that he's had basically enough. The team isn't good enough. And there's no way that they can fix it. So now Houston is scrambling, and they're doing everything they can to get James Harden out by tonight. And, they don't want to waste any time. They want him out tonight. And the destinations that I'm hearing, as well as basically everybody else, is that it's going to be to Brooklyn or Philadelphia.
Okay. So one thing I like about your analysis is there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes, and don't always assume it's about money. It might be about relationships, it might be about the chance to win. Might be a back office deal, a lot of stuff. So I like how you kind of tee that up, and I appreciate that, Anthony. I'm just going by the mainstream news, and it's not always right. I'm historically a Tillman Fertitta fan. I'm just putting it out there historically. And he's an owner, I think a majority owner of Houston, or I think owns the whole thing or whatever he owns. And I understand that James Harden does not like the fact that Tillman Fertitta historically has supported Trump, and that was enough kind of for him to make waves. Does that have any clout, or you think that may be a little posturing for a trade because he just wants out? What's your take on that? Without getting political, but what's your take on that?
Well, not necessarily political, but I don't think that's something that James Harden appreciates. Now, if Houston was a championship contender, or the pieces were in place, then I don't necessarily know if Tillman Fertitta's political stance would have an impact on James Harden's mind. I think he just wants to go and win a championship. I think he just wants out of Houston as soon as possible. So. Um, Again, the NBA is a very politically aware sport, and it's hard to ignore. Like, you try and keep politics out of sports as much as you can, but it's virtually impossible. And you've kind of seen players say some similar things about Tillman Fertitta as they have with Knicks owner James Dolan. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it necessarily is the determining factor in why James Harden wants to leave, but I could assure you that James Harden really just wants to go win a championship, and right now Houston isn't the place for that.
Great point. Now, I'm a Jersey guy. I told you that. People know that who listen to the show. And losing the New Jersey Nets was not a big loss for us,
Well, it's for me.
Well, no, of course. But I'm saying in terms of, I know, right? But I'm saying in terms of, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't want to diminish economics and that kind of stuff because it does have, a big impact. But in terms of, losing, it wasn't like we lost the Giants or, if I was in New York to the Yankees. But the kind of the promise, aside for the financial and also the allure of being in Brooklyn and in New York proper. And they had some, they're a decent team. I'm not saying that, but it kind of feels like they didn't fulfill the promise. Like, what are your thoughts on that? It seems like they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're trying to get the right players on the bus. I know Kyrie's out. He'll be back soon, hopefully. But it just seems like you kind of moved to New York with kind of like the step it up promise. I think Jay-Z owned the Slither. I don't know what happened with that. But what are your thoughts on like that move and where they are now, and where do you think they're going to go in the next maybe 2 to 3 years?
I mean, I think they made the right move. I think the issue that they made when they made the move was actually trying so hard to steal Knicks fans.
Yeah.
When you're moving into New York City, they tried to steal Knicks fans, and they completely alienated New Jersey Nets fans. And not that there were that many, but it's not like they were the Seattle Supersonics moving to Oklahoma City.
True.
They were moving 13 miles from Continental Airlines or Izod Center to Barclays Center in Brooklyn, 13 miles away. There was no need to shut out the fan base. And that's where, and I wrote a long feature piece on this, they went wrong, and they needed to embrace their New Jersey roots. And now you're starting to see them do those types of things. They're wearing vintage throwback jerseys. They have a bar network, and they have bars on Long Island and Manhattan and Brooklyn. They don't have any bars in New Jersey. Now, obviously during COVID, that's not a concern, but that's these are the little things that matter. They have these banners up in the arena, and they changed the New Jersey Nets banners that they earned while they were red, white, and blue, and changed them to black and white.
Yikes.
Well, a big issue for me when they moved to Brooklyn was that they were just trying so hard to force the product instead of just letting the play speak for itself.
Correct.
Right. And like, let the play speak for itself, embrace your history, move forward. Yeah, you rebrand in Brooklyn, but for so long they were forcing it, and it led to a disaster after 4 or 5 years. And now they're starting to head back up, obviously with Kevin Durant and kind of Kyrie Irving. They do have a good team in place, and they do have the best team in New York right now, for whatever that means. If fans were allowed in stadiums, the Nets would be popping. The Barclays Center would be jumping up and down right now. The Nets are on the map, and they are fun. They are one of the hottest stories in the NBA. But my concerns with them were just that they tried to force a product, and now we're 8 years into it, and they kind of have to start over. And they're 6-6 through 12 games, and right now they have to hope that they are a championship contending team, because that's the only way that they're going to win fans over for when this pandemic does come. When this pandemic hopefully goes away and fans can kind of start coming back into arenas, that they're the hot team in New York City and not the guys across in Manhattan.
Now, I want to talk about the NBA in whole. That I want to actually spend a second on the Knicks too, and then I want to learn more about the association because I really like the idea of it. But the NBA as a whole, I know they had the bubble, and then they obviously started the new season. I like how they did it. I thought that was a good move having the bubble, and I understand they were the throes of me personally. I really like how the NBA and I really like how the NFL really handled the pandemic. It's just my opinion of all pro sports. It's just my humble opinion. But with that being said, though, I heard the ratings for NBA as a whole are getting hit pretty hard in lieu of the pandemic, which I kind of thought would have been the opposite, because if you can't go to a game, you would watch it. So what do you think the pandemic has had an effect on, negatively or positively, for the NBA as a whole, their ratings and their fan base?
Hey, Tom, I'm sorry to interrupt your question, but James Harden just got traded to the Brooklyn Nets.
Wow. You heard it here, folks. We were getting this up like right after this call. And
Wow.
Anthony, who's going to win on Belmont in the 7th race? I love it. Well, dude, now your credibility just went way up. So give us like what's a pandemic's effect on? Well, now with trades and stuff like that, it'll get things exciting. But in terms of the NBA as a whole and its ratings and the pandemic, what are your thoughts? In terms of how the NBA is doing in terms of ratings and stuff.
I mean, obviously, with every sport is going to go down with the pandemic, right? It's just the nature of the industry and how things are done. But I think they're doing the best they possibly can. I mean, first and foremost, they have to keep everyone healthy, and that's their major concern right now. I know they need to make money and things like that, but the protocols have gotten more strict, and really to a point where, they're at their basically final straw with protocols before they do have to put a pause to the season, because the 6th game of the year, 3 weeks into the season, has already been postponed today. So, I think it's tough with the ratings. Every sport has gone down, and it's just kind of inevitable. But again, Tom, you got to hope for better times ahead and adapt. That's all you could do, is try and adapt and hope for the best, like I mentioned.
Agreed. So before we get on to with the association a little more deeper on that, the Knicks been sucking for a minute now, and prior to the pandemic, Knicks fans I know there's only 17,000 seats, but like every game's still packed. It's still electric. Like people following them, like games are still sold out prior to the pandemic, and they are just not good. And I think Knicks fans have been uber patient, with the Knicks as a whole. And I don't know, this year, I know they're kind of starting a little flat, and I don't think they're super slated to have a great year. But like when the pandemic returns, like how much more time are fans going to give the Knicks? Yankees, the Yankees, you're allowed like 2, maybe 3 bad years at most. The Mets were a little bit more lenient because they suck. Hence, I'm a Yankee fan. So it's like the Knicks, you've been patient. You've been kind of sitting here and like, hey, one of these guys is going to frigging get good. This is New York friggin' City going on. So how much more time do they need patience to really give them before they just like start bolting?
I think this is going to be at least a 2-3 year process. When you restart and rebuild like the Knicks have, you have to be patient. You have to take things step by step, and that's not what fans want to hear or anything along those lines. But you just brought in a new coach. You have a bunch of lottery picks that are starting to flourish. A good borderline star in Julius Randle. So the first step is implementing that culture, having that blue collar, high character, individual type of culture. Then you have guys buying in, guys with a chip on their shoulder, somebody like Austin Rivers, like I mentioned, Julius Randle, RJ Barrett, guys like that. And they're doing that right now. I mean, they're overachieving early in the season. They're 5-6, but that's very good by the Knicks standards. And again, they're buying in. The idea now is that they have to continue to buy in, not burn out, and not skip steps. They have to continue to rebuild and develop these guys and really just by that you don't tank. You continue to develop players by trying to win basketball games, and over time that will become infectious, and then those wins will be full. Well, you'll see the fruit to your labor, like the Nets did from the 2018-2019 season when they went from 28 wins to 42. It's all about patience and all about, again, implementing that culture, not skipping steps and not trading all their draft picks away for one superstar that's not going to win them a championship.
Interesting. And I like your process on rebuilding, because it's applicable to any business team, any sales team, anything, buy-in, leadership, followership. I love it, Anthony. So let's kind of switch gears a little bit before we wrap up. Is on the association, right? I love the simpleness of it. It's clean. Like, again, here's you're almost like bringing back remember the old school way? Like, it was like you used to get an email from something and like you looked at it and then like you were happy with it and you moved on. You didn't really go on a website. You didn't go on social media. It came to you, you looked at it and moved on. So you're kind of bringing that back. Then I also like when you go on your site, if you missed a newsletter for that day, there it is. I love this, Anthony. But you're a writer, and I'm not knocking you, but I'm just saying you're a writer and you write well and you know the game. So give us, when you started, give us some numbers. How did you build your audience? How are you doing it? Because I'm really fascinated on how you're executing and getting the message out there.
Well, I think it's just a matter of, look, we started with my base that I had in Brooklyn and the local base with the Nets and the Knicks, and now we're exploring and we're expanding. I was on NBA TV the other day, and
wow,
we're hitting other markets. Denver, or Oklahoma City, Dallas. All these different markets that we're touching on every single day. Going on radio, going on podcasts, going on television, whatever it might be. Just getting that knowledge out there, getting that inside information, and of course discussing the association. So there's that aspect of it. There's the Periscope aspect that I mentioned on Twitter, that you bring a welcoming vibe, that you talk to fans and you give them a platform to really have their voices heard. That's something that they want, and you continue to do that. And just like I mentioned with the Knicks, for me, I want to implement the culture, show the people that I'm working hard, and it's a welcoming family type of vibe. So in terms of marketing, we're going all over the United States right now and hitting every team. So that's been fun. And the next thing is now we're going to have a Twitter, an Instagram, and a whole store full of merchandise. So a lot of that stuff is fun. This is all a fun, good, exciting process for us, especially in the beginning stages, because of course, with anything new, you're still also learning about yourself. So we're going to continue to grow and continue to work hard and have that family vibe.
That's a great point. So what's next for the association? Just keep blocking and tackling and building up your base and giving the content this way. Is there maybe others bells and whistles you plan on adding? Give us kind of like the next step, if you will, for the association.
I think, again, just establishing that identity. We're in our third week right now, and establishing our identity, continuing to practice what we preach, and yeah, continuing those NBA TV appearances while we have this consistent NBA daily newsletter. Try and get some feature articles up there once in a while. Separate us from the pack and show that, again, that we're not just a newsletter. We're more than that. So I can't really say exactly what's going to happen. The future is always uncertain, as the Doors' Jim Morrison would say. But it's all part of the fun, right? We're learning, and I'm trying to figure out ways to expand, and with that is talking to the readers and talking to the fans of the site and the newsletter and seeing what they want.
Wow, it's only a few weeks old. I'm impressed. I thought for some reason I was under the impression it was around a little longer, but nevertheless, I'm impressed. Folks, check out Anthony Puccio's theassociation.com. I'm going to put a link in the iTunes and wherever you're listening to bio so you can check it out. And Anthony, for those that are just happy to be in the car or driving and listening and not having the ability to click the link, how can we find you?
You can find me at apooch on Twitter, at apooch on Instagram, and of course, if you want to sign up for the newsletter, it's just theassociation.com. Put in your email, and you can email me at anthony@theassociation.com. It's very, very simple and very, very free.
Love it, brother. You heard it here first. James Harden traded. He predicted it. It happened. And Anthony, thank you for being on the New Theory podcast.
Tom, thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.